Tokyo, the defense chiefs of the United States and Japan have agreed that it is crucial to have American forces on the Korean peninsula for regional deterrence, whether or not North Korea abandons its arsenal of nuclear and ballistic missile weapons. U.S. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and Japanese Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera had on Tuesday, May 29, noted that North Korea may ask for a reduction of troops at its unprecedented summit with the U.S. in Singapore. In their second meeting in 5 weeks, the two officials also stressed that their nations were aligned on keeping maximum pressure on the North until its complete denuclearization. Their meeting came amid a whirlwind of diplomatic activity in the run-up to an expected summit meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which is on track to be held on June 12. This will be the first ever sit-down between the incumbent leaders of their countries. Depending on how their summit goes, Tokyo is mulling a meeting between Foreign Minister Taro Kono and his North Korean counterpart Ri Yong-ho in early August. This will also take place in Singapore, on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum, Kyodo News reported on Wednesday, May 30. Mr. Onodera and Mr. Mattis had met for an hour in Hawaii, where they were to attend a change of command ceremony for the U.S. Pacific Command. The outgoing commander, Admiral Harry Harris, has been nominated as the new U.S. envoy to South Korea. In particular, we confirmed that we are completely in agreement on the importance of resolving the abductions issue, and that the North's missile disarmament will also include its short-range ballistic missiles, Mr. Onodera told reporters after the meeting. They may meet again in Singapore this weekend, together with South Korean counterpart Song Young-moo, on the sidelines of the high-level Shangri-La dialogue. Japan has set as a precondition for the normalization of ties with the North the resolution of the long-standing abductions issue. It wants North Korea to return the Japanese citizens it kidnapped in the 1970s and 1980s, or to provide concrete DNA proof should they have died. Tokyo has also been anxious that Washington might strike a bargain with Pyongyang to get the communist regime to give up its intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, but keep the short and medium-range missiles, which will leave Japan squarely in the crosshairs. The discussions came as Japan, long bound by a pacifist constitution that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe wants to revise, said last week that it wants to lift its self-imposed cap on defense spending at 1% of its gross domestic product. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, said that Japan faces its biggest crisis in the post-war period, and that its defense spending ceiling should be commensurate with that of other countries. It often cites the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's target for its member nations to devote at least 2% of GDP to defense. Former top diplomat Hitoshi Tanaka, who was actively involved in negotiations for then Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi's visits to Pyongyang in 2002 and 2004, also told reporters on Wednesday that any reduction of U.S. troops in the region was unlikely. Mr. Tanaka, who now chairs the Japan Research Institute for International Strategy think tank, said, "Think about it. The U.S. sees Russia and China as security threats and are trying to counter these powers. Do you think they will be willing to diminish its presence in the region?" Referring to China's increasing military assertiveness, he added, "Japan's threat is not just North Korea, and its security and defense strategy is not 100% dependent on the situation in North Korea. In the meantime, Japan is one of the most vocal proponents in continuing the maximum pressure campaign that it considers instrumental in drawing North Korea to dialogue. And in spite of recent developments, it has warned that sanctions pressure should be maintained until concrete steps are taken. In doing so, it cites historical precedents to show how the world had been hoodwinked by Pyongyang's charm offensive, only for the North to not fulfill its end of the bargain. Japan has stepped up its policing of regional waters, working with the U.S., Britain, Australia and Canada. This month, it reported to the United Nations Security Council a suspected illicit ship-to-ship transfer between a North Korean-flagged vessel and what was purportedly a Chinese ship. Depending on how the talks between Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim turn out, Japan hopes to eventually lay the ground for Mr. Abe to meet the North Korean leader. Rather than merely relying on other countries, Mr. Tanaka said, these countries can help to build the momentum, but Japan has to directly confront North Korea to solve its own issues. And for this reason these talks should be held at the earliest possible time.